In June this year, the US Congress passed a motion of concern about persistent and credible reports of organs being taken from prisoners of conscience in China, including detained followers of the outlawed spiritual movement Falun Gong. It was in response to a disturbing report which revealed evidence that Chinese hospitals were involved in the large-scale harvesting of organs for profit, sold mostly to Westerners. The documentary, Hard to Believe, which has just been released in Australia, examines the live organ harvesting trade in China.
I felt this was sort of a horrible thing and nobody really wanted to look at it.
I was blood tested, not only blood test, chest x-ray, blood pressure, an eye test, and the kidney test.
It was as if somebody was checking the health of her organs and nothing else.
Dr. Anwar, that is your job now. To, as quick as possible, remove liver and kidney.
There are certain lines we can't cross. This is a red line. That's an absolute red line.
Now, the director of China's Organ Transplant Foundation has rejected claims that up to 100,000 transplants are carried out each year from executed prisoners.
I think this is insult to the intelligence of transplant professionals. Furthermore, it's insulting to the sacrifice of donors and their families in China.
Human rights investigator Gutmann features in the documentary Hard to Believe, and he was the co-author of that report on the extent of China's transplant business, which so alarmed American politicians. He joins me now from Perth. Gutmann, welcome to Lateline.
Great to be here.
As you heard there, China is rejecting claims that it continues to harvest organs from executed prisoners. It says it stopped the practice in January last year.
Yes, I don't really accept that this is about insults or anything like that. This is just about the facts. When we actually looked at the hospitals, there's 146 hospitals which are approved by the Ministry of Health to do transplants, and actually a lot of them are just major transplant centers. When we looked at them individually and looked at their internal communications, which are often, sometimes they're thrown in the trash, sometimes they're not, but they do have to communicate inside, and this took several years actually to do. We found something very peculiar. We found a very, very high volume of transplants. Now, when we added that up, we get to a number of about 60,000 transplants per year to 100,000 transplants per year. Now, the Chinese have been waving this figure, 10,000 transplants per year, for years now. But we're not seeing that. We're seeing something completely different. We're seeing confidence in the future. That the source of organs is almost unending. There is no peak oil.
How can you say for sure that the Chinese regime is actually killing prisoners to supply the demand for organs?
Well, they admit that there were, for years they've admitted since 2006 to actually 2005.
I mean contemporaneously, given they say they stopped the practice in January last year.
Well, we just see no sign of it. What we see is tremendous continuity, and the voluntary organ donations in China the numbers are quite clearly, they're not high enough. Even the made-up numbers aren't high enough. We had researchers calling into voluntary organ donation centers in many Chinese cities. And they would call every day, and the phone would ring and ring and ring. And then after a month or so, somebody would answer the phone, and they'd say, I want to donate my organs, but I'm also interested, how many other donations have you received? And they'd say, well, 5 or 3. So, this just isn't there. The Chinese have, I understand this is an issue of high sensitivity, and in a sense, I feel that the Chinese Communist Party sees it as a dagger aimed at its heart. But the facts are the facts. They have to grapple. I think everybody has to grapple with these new numbers. I have to grapple with them. They're very difficult. This is not an expected result. I believe the Chinese were going to stop this.
What can a country like Australia do to apply pressure on China to respect the human rights of its own citizens, given how guarded it is and how unkindly it takes to other countries meddling in its affairs?
That's a great question, and I really believe that Australia is, in some sense, a pivotal country in the world on this issue, in part because two of the presidents of the Transplantation Society are here at Westmead Hospital, and the Transplantation Society, since 2012, has tried to take the lead on this issue. somewhat unsuccessfully, to get the Chinese to reform. Well, actually fairly unsuccessfully. But at the same time, China's medical leadership in this area is prized and valued by the Chinese. So I think it's extremely important that Australia sends a signal, the kind of signal that Israel has already sent, that Spain has sent, and recently Taiwan. Now, all of those countries have banned organ tourism to China. And that is making that's a significant act. It sends a message to the Chinese leadership that the medical establishment in China is not trusted, and that there's not only reforms have to be made, but there has to be some sort of accountability for the past as well.
When you've spoken about Westerners taking advantage of the Chinese organ surplus, if you like, is this individuals that are going to China, as you say, on organ holidays, or is this Western hospitals engaging in the import of the organs?
You know, there's been a lot of sort of rumors flying around about this, and I just wanted to clear it up. Most people, as I understand it, I mean, organ tourism is not our focus. Our focus is on the victims in China. We think that's a profoundly important question, and the organ tourism is sort of secondary to that. Having said that, as my understanding is, you can pretty much Google the words, "help, I need a kidney," and you will very quickly get to a discussion board or something like that, where people will kind of say, hey, you know, you can call this hospital in China, Tianjin Central Hospital. They speak English, and you can get it for a fairly reasonable price. So I don't think that's, and we're not going to close down the internet or shut down these sites. That's not the point. The point is for us to make a stand of the kind of stand that Israel did, that Taiwan did. I'd point out one more thing. Israel has a software industry which has a lot of Chinese investment in it. I think they were very nervous about making this decision when they did back in 2008. Taiwan has God knows how many thousand missiles aimed at it right now from the mainland, but they did it. They showed the guts to do this, and I think it's very important. This is why I'm here in Australia in many ways, to talk to people about this issue and try to get something moving here.
Well, all the very best with that. Ethan Gutmann, thank you for your time.
Thank you.